Norman Finkelstein. If you don't know Norman Finkelstein is one of the leading voices in the academy, outside the academy, in terms of criticizing the state of Israel. He is a brilliant political scientist. He's one of the greatest political historians of Israel-Palestine that we've ever seen. Norman Finkelstein has been a consistent and prominent voice on the issue of Israel and Palestine. And Norman don't take no tea for the fever. Norman don't play no games. He is direct. He's honest. He can be acerbic. And he recently weighed in on a series of matters. Of course, he weighed in on the peace agreement. He weighed in on the Trump plan. In fact, if you watch on the channel, you can see my interview from Al Jazeera with Norman from 2 weeks ago, if that, week and a half ago, where we talked about these issues. But then Norman Finkelstein decided to weigh in on what happened with Van Jones. Again, Van Jones was on Bill Maher last week and spoke out about what was going on. He made a very insensitive remark, a very cold and callous remark about babies in Gaza who are dying or who are dead. I read him his rights. You can see it on the channel. You can see it on Patreon. You can see my full segment called F Van Jones. You can also see some of my other commentary on it for the last few days. But beyond all of that, Norman Finkelstein decided that he would respond to Van Jones. And when Norman Finkelstein responded, it went a little bit different than when I responded. It went a little bit different than when some of your other favorites responded. Norman Finkelstein said some things that I got to be honest, I didn't even know Norman could say, not because I didn't think he was clever enough, but because I didn't think that he was petty enough. But Norman decided to jump on the Twitter, or X, excuse me, and say the following. Check this out, y'all. First thing he does is he tweets a picture of Van Jones from Bill Maher still. And he says, why is Van Jones wearing a pimp's blazer when he's so obviously a high-priced call girl? Of course, he's saying that he is a sellout and that he is whoring himself out, to use the callous expression, to the Zionists or to Israel or to whoever. But that's the point. Van Jones said, or Norman Finkelstein said, why is Van Jones wearing a pimp's blazer when he's so obviously a high-priced call girl? That was a lot. But things happen. People say things. Also, I don't hate the jacket, for the record. Van Jones is trash. The jacket, I ain't mad at it. Then he tweets another time. The question that the whole world is asking: when Van Jones F's his mistress, does he wear the yellow ribbon? Of course, the yellow ribbon is alluding to the kind of solidarity with Israel and the hostage return and all that stuff. But he says, when Van Jones F's his mistress, does he wear the yellow ribbon? Now, I don't know about Van Jones having a mistress. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe this is common knowledge. I don't know. I wasn't interested enough in Van Jones' personal life to go Google it. Although I suspect we could find it relatively easily if it's true. If it's not true, shame on you. But when I saw this one, I was like, Norman is on one today. Norman is going in. He is going ham on Van Jones. And it started to feel like we were losing the plot a little bit. Like, is this okay? Is this beyond the boundaries of civility? Is this too disrespectful? Is this too personal? These are the kinds of questions I was asking. Anyway. Also, I'm sorry. Also, how the hell did Norman Finkelstein learn how to use X? I know Norman Finkelstein. I was with Norman Finkelstein like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. No exaggeration. No more, maybe a month tops. We were flying from a city and into another place, and I had to wait for the Uber to come because Norman doesn't use Uber. He doesn't have a cell phone. So if he ain't got no cell phone and he ain't got an app like Uber, which seems quite useful these days, we'll talk about Uber in a minute, or Lyft or whatever. How the hell is he suddenly on social media? Obviously, he didn't write it himself. He got somebody tweeting for him. So that made me go, maybe it's not his voice. Maybe someone is using their voice for him. Maybe somebody is using a comment he made off the record and tweeting it out. Because I was like, I don't understand how this could be Norman Finkelstein. But it was Norman Finkelstein. We'll talk about that in a second. Then, as I was wondering if he'd gone too far, I saw this one. And this is the one that got everybody hyped. Barry Weiss hires Van Jones to head up CBS News's shvartza department. Wow. Wow. All right. So, for those who don't know, Barry Weiss, of course, is a former writer for the New York Times, a young woman, Zionist, ascended quickly. I didn't think she'd be the head of CBS News. You know, just being head of the Free Press was a big deal. Being head of CBS News is huge. Anyway, Barry Weiss is someone who a lot of people don't care for in terms of her politics. So it's no surprise that Barry Weiss and Van Jones are friendly. In fact, and that they would support each other. In fact, yesterday, Norman said, breaking story, in her first X post since becoming head of CBS News, Barry Weiss launched his campaign to defend Van Jones. Uncle Tom Lives Matter. So now he's calling him Uncle Tom too. So he's calling him Uncle Tom, and he uses this word, shvartza. Now, if you don't know Yiddish, and it's okay if you don't know Yiddish, or if you do know Yiddish and don't know this word, although that seems unlikely, a shvartza is a derogatory term for a black person. Schwartz or shvartz means black. Shvartza is like blackie, darky, whatever. It's the closest thing to the N-word we have in Yiddish. It's not the N-word. I want to be clear. It's not the N-word. But just because there's nothing that really matches the N-word linguistically in Arabic or Hebrew or Yiddish or even Spanish, French, right? I haven't seen it. If you see it, let me know. But anyway, he uses the word shvartza. And then the world lost it. In fact, if you just look at some of the comments here, just so you see I'm not making this up. Shai Davidai, one of the big pro-Israel voices, one of the crazy professors out there. He was at Columbia University. I don't know. I think he's officially gone from Columbia now. He was a nutcase, though. But you see people calling him a racist. What the fuck is wrong with you? Extremely normal thing to say, Mr. Finkelstein, sarcastically, of course. You drop this and accuse him of being in the Klan. That's embarrassing, and race is embarrassing for you. Don't delete, etc. So you see a bunch of people accusing him of being racist. All of them are Zionists. Most of them are probably bots. Both of them are probably bots. But the question is, did Norman Finkelstein go too far? So there's a few ways to think about this. First, let's get with the elephant in the room, right? Is it racist to say that the racists are calling you or treating you like an Uncle Tom? I don't love when white people use the word Uncle Tom. I had the same issue when Tim Wise used it. Tim Wise called somebody Uncle Tom. And I know Tim Wise's politics are great. He's on the right side of the issue. But don't call people an Uncle Tom. It's not for you to say. The word shvartza is a word used in Yiddish derogatorily toward black people. And he's saying that Barry Weiss is going to make him the head of the shvartza department. He's basically calling him an Uncle Tom and saying you're Tom and or we would say cooning for people who don't even like you. Now, a couple things. One, I don't know Barry Weiss to be racist. I don't believe Barry Weiss is racist. Certainly not anti-black racist. Is she anti-Palestinian? I can't imagine that she's not. So let me be clear. I'm talking about anti-black racism right now. But that ain't the real point that Norman is making. He's saying that Van Jones is a sellout. He's saying that Van Jones should be held accountable. He's saying that Van Jones is wrong. He's saying that Van Jones has given away his principles for a mess of pottage. I get it. And he's saying the people that are doing this to you don't even rock with black people. They're racist on some level. Let's assume that's all true. Should you use the word shvartza to make? Now, of course, he's not calling him a shvartza. He's saying that those people are calling you a shvartza. He's putting the words in their mouth. He's ventriloquating their racism. So it's not the same. So ignore all the bullshit, melodramatic, crocodile tears from the Zionists. First of all, y'all don't care about suffering. Certainly not rhetorical violence. Y'all don't even care about real violence if you're not speaking out against what's happening in Gaza right now. Second, it's a distraction. It's beside the point. We know what the actual issue is here. It was Van Jones saying what he said. And it was Van Jones justifying what's happening in Gaza, which is the real issue, the fundamental issue, the genocide. So anything but the genocide is a distraction. I hate that Norman Finkelstein used the word shvartza. I hate that he used the word Uncle Tom. I just don't like it. I think it's not his place. However, I am not going to equate what Norman Finkelstein said with the thing or the person who he's talking about. In other words, Finkelstein and Van Jones ain't peers here. And use the word shvartza to describe racist people or to suggest that racist people are using that word is not the same as being racist. Let's not pretend that everything is the same. That's silly. Norman Finkelstein's not racist. Norman Finkelstein was not trying to be racist. Norman Finkelstein wasn't thinking that he was racist. He was still wrong. I don't think he should use it. I think Norman Finkelstein was wrong for using it. Do I think he went too far? Yes, but only for two reasons. One, I think it's just fundamentally wrong. It's not his place to use that language. And second, and I don't think anybody should use that language, to be clear. But second, because it becomes a distraction. Suddenly, for the last 2 days, people are talking about what Finkelstein said instead of what Van Jones said. People are talking about what Finkelstein did instead of what Van Jones did. You let them off the hook. You cheapen your argument when you create these types of distractions from people who are looking for distractions. Now, I know Norman Finkelstein pretty well. I consider him a friend at this point. I know he disagrees, and I know that he would fight to the death to defend his right to be able to say what he wants to say, and he's right. And I know, based on his last book, I'll burn that bridge when I get to it, which you should read, that he feels like we're so caught up in woke culture, as he calls it in his book, and as he said to me personally, that we're not making useful distinctions, and that we're focused on the wrong thing, and that we've reduced our politics to identity politics, and that all of it is an extravagant waste of time when we should be talking about Van Jones. I might agree with everything you say, Norm. I love you, man. I would agree with you. But you're creating the distraction. You could just not say that. And if you just don't say that, then we don't end up here. And that is the real point. So, yes, Norman Finkelstein went too far. Yes. But he's not the bad guy here. He just used language that I think he should have used. The bad guy is still Van Jones. And the person we should be talking about, or the entity that we should be talking about, is neither Van Jones nor Norman Finkelstein. We should be talking. We shouldn't be talking about people. We should be talking about systems. We should be talking about structures. We should be talking about death. We should be talking about genocide. We should be talking about how to end this genocide. That's what we should be talking about. And until we do that, it's all a waste of time.